Let's call this meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 5:30, and this is a Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee meeting. So, approval of minutes, second item on the agenda, September 14th, I entertain a motion.
A motion.
Motion by Brad.
I'll second.
Second by Ally. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Conflicts of interest to report, anyone? All right, public comment. I see nobody from the public here, which is unusual lately, so.
Move to a bigger room, that's why.
Yeah, right,
No comment
exactly.
in public and now they don't comment.
So we are right on to item 5, which is a Bram Park RFP. Justin.
Thanks, John. So in your packet is a memo from me and then the latest rendering from Parkitecture on Bram Park. The latest rendering just has the pickleball decision that we made a couple months ago incorporated into the design. We're at the point of retaining professional services for architectural and engineering. They will try to tie the entire park in together. We have it pretty simplified with just a hard court surfaces or ball field or playground independently. The trick will be just making sure we tie everything together at the end of the day, and that's lighting systems, any type of plumbing, water, sewer, and making sure that's done correctly as it relates to all the other components. The biggest one will be electricity and tying that all together, because every little component in the plan has some sort of lighting feature. We want to make sure we have that in place before we kind of put a shovel in the ground. So we're going to hire some firm to do engineering and architectural services. We'd like to get this started now, start interviewing and get someone retained by the first of the year, and then get the ballpark out to bid probably in the first quarter of 2023. Most likely start construction early part of the summer. No, construction on the ball field will take place after their seasons. The high school teams and a lot of youth teams use the ball field, and then they usually wrap up their seasons. High school wraps up their season in June, usually the first week in June or last week in May, but the youth go all the way till August 1st. So construction for that won't happen until probably August 1st for the actual ball field. But the sooner we can get our bids out and people can get on their schedules, the better pricing we can get. So what right now we're doing is looking for approval for this committee to go out and get professional architectural and engineering services. This is also going to the Board of Public Works on Monday for their approval.
Make a motion.
Questions?
No, I make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Discussion?
I
Yes.
just have one quick question. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, he called on you first.
No.
Ladies first.
Oh, gosh. Okay, I was just wondering, number 4, rain garden is on the courts. Is that where number 4 is? And what is a rain garden?
Good catch, Natasha. No, the rain garden is not on the courts. It's similar to what you may see in parking lots. There's one right outside here. As you exit out the front door, you take a right. That's where like the parking lot runoff collects and then dissipates in. So the parking lot runoff it's that green space at the corner of the parking lot. So the 4 is a little off skewed, but it'll be right there.
Okay.
Okay, then my question, other than the courts, that was the only change to what we've already looked at?
Yep.
Okay.
And I just had a question, and I know I missed a meeting before about this, but do we know how many bathrooms we're putting on each side? Like, is this, are we replacing what we have there?
You know, what we'll probably do is we're going to use the Wenzo experiment as a sample of what we'll do here at Bram. So
Explain.
this, we're going to put, and later in our agenda,
Yeah.
we'll be talking about the Wenzo Restrooms. And right now, we're targeting 2 family restrooms there. So they'll be independently locked and operated, one on each side with a chase in the middle for some storage, as well as accessibility for the plumbing features. It'll have 1 toilet, 1 urinal, 1 sink in each. Right now, Bram has that, correct, Ben? I think it's,
Bram has
There's
three
two.
stalls for the females.
it has 3 stalls?
Yes.
So we may look
It's at
at,
least 2, I want to say 3.
Thought there was 2 ladies.
so we may
Maybe
look
one.
at adding probably a third type facility there. we want to do family. Family gets us kind of easily accessible. We don't, rather than doing one large restroom, which I think is overcompensating, so we haven't quite got into the actual number of toilets, urinals, or sinks will be in each.
I would just look at your user groups. One being pickleball that we were really had a huge support for, and then 2 being the softball diamond. I don't see those 2 user groups using family restrooms.
The family restroom is a term.
I'm just saying, like, I guess I wouldn't want to lose a female, like, one family restroom, a female side with 2, a male side with 2.
To get more
just-
stalls,
yeah.
more stations.
Mhm. That would just be my only,
Yeah, the family restroom is just a term we use to kind of
Right.
incorporate.
I understand.
Any other questions? Did you have another one?
Well, I mean, this is just plugging the family restrooms. So what it is that anyone, any gender can go
Yep.
into it, but it's really helpful if you've got a mixed gender dad and a daughter who need to go in.
Mhm.
Right, and
You
that's why
know.
I'm saying, like, having one would be fine.
Well, but if both of them are, and you can just use whatever you want,
Right.
you know what I mean?
I'm
I
just
think
saying
the
a
bigger
team-
point is you're going from 4 down to 2,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
There's
And I'm
4
just-
spots for the bathroom instead of just 2.
Oh,
And I'm just
okay.
seeing, like, a softball team finishing up their
Okay,
tournament,
I
and
see
they're
what
gonna
you're
go
saying.
use the bathroom, wash their hands, but they're gonna wait.
Right.
You know, I'm seeing pickleballs as their, you know, again, we're looking at a tournament type facility right here. And you have one person going in, you know, possibly to use it. That's all my point is just consider user groups.
Yeah, well, we'll take that under advisement. I think that's in year 20. Interesting change
Correct.
for municipalities.
Correct.
The one comment that I have is and a concern I have is, electrical services. So, you're bringing in the electrical services for phase 1 and 2, just make sure that, that we're thinking about the phases further down the road, and maybe we can use electrical services on the walking trails, on the paths, for lighted areas there. So, and I'm assuming that'll just be all inclusive, right? You'll include electrical services for the whole project, and even if you have to bring them in phase 1, it would be, scalable.
Yeah, all of our electrical come out of that restroom facility.
Yep.
And then all
Okay.
the spider web out of there.
Okay.
To the parking lots, to the pickleball, to the walkways,
Mhm.
ball fields, playgrounds. So,
Okay.
as long as it's all tied together and it's phased correctly, we don't
Yep.
undersize it. There's other things to consider, just like Wi-Fi, accessibility, charging stations, those
Mhm.
things that are just different with today's designs.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Justin. We are on to item 6, facility rental policy 6.320. Justin?
This was part of our overall policy adjustments and review over the last, I think, 3 years-ish. And the facility rentals is one that we took kind of bits and pieces from all of them. We had some stuff with Oak Avenue and this building. We ended up combining it all, calling it facility rentals. And then just as of recently, we've had kind of an increase in individuals using this building and occupying the building for long periods of time. We talked to our police department as well as our legal counsel. They said if you don't have any policy really in place, there's really nothing you can do. You can ask them to leave and they could just say, I don't want to, and you can't make them. So they said you need to have some sort of loitering policy, which they were surprised. We as a municipality don't have a loitering policy anywhere. So whether that's in City Hall or anywhere, people can occupy that space for all day, every day, and just sit there. And that's what they were doing here. We really didn't have much of an issue with these individuals, but they were occupying a space in the building for the entire day, from 7:30 to 4:30, 5 days a week, for quite a long period of time. I'd say probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Just of recently they have moved on, but we've had individuals occupy our building for long periods of time. whether it's up there in the lounge or in some of the rooms or just in general areas. We thought it would be best to have some sort of loitering policy in place in case it gets out of hand or they become disruptive or people become somewhat disturbed or complain about them. So in the policy itself is most of the language we added in red on page 6. And primarily the first one talks about loitering, and it talks about no person shall loiter or remain in the building either alone or in companion with other persons in such a manner that it unreasonably obstructs the usual use of the entrances, hallways, stairways, or rooms designated for specific purposes, or they impede or disrupt the performance of employees' duties, prevents the general public from obtaining or disrupts, I'm not following number, obtaining administrative or recreational services, or restricts free egress to or egress from the building, or the building's intended uses include. So what we want to say is you're here for a reason, and conducting and participating in a meeting, exercising, playing billiards, walking, business at the Park and Rec Department. We have the job center as well as the foundation in the building. If you do not have a tenant purpose in the building, you are loitering, you could be asked to leave the premises. No person shall sleep on furniture, the floor, in the stairways or hallways. We have added some public indecency. This is no person shall perform or commit any of the following acts in the building or on the property: the act of sexual conduct, lewd exposure of the body. No person shall exhibit, sell, give away, or offer to sell or give away, display, hold, or place in public any obscene publication, video, or obscene item while at park facilities. They should have proper attire is required at all times, meaning shirt and shoes are required and must be worn properly. Behavior guidelines, I won't go through all this, but the behavior guidelines is something we took from the library, adjusted it for our facility, but it pretty much says just behave while you're in the building and don't be disruptive. On letter F, in order to maintain a respectable and professional environment, visitors may be asked to leave for violations or might be removed for a period of time for up to 1 year or permanently. Decisions to exclude persons from the community center will be made by the Park and Recreation Director. Appeals may be submitted in writing to the Parks and Recreation Committee. So this language is pertaining giving us some ability to remove individuals who we view as loitering. As I said previously, we've had individuals occupy areas in the building for long periods of time and really haven't caused any issue, and then they've moved on. Maybe it's a day or two and then they moved on, but we've recently had some individuals here for, I would say, probably a month. Amanda, Nikki, you've at least a month, and it would be sun up or from when we opened to when we closed, and pretty much occupy and do nothing.
And loud.
What's that?
Not officially disruptive, but they're loud enough to.
The
Maybe
snoring was
consider this,
loud,
yeah.
and the sleeping was great.
Yeah.
And these individuals, we've contacted police, and they were aware of them, and they've tried to give them resources as well as the different services that are around the community. They have worked with them, but they choose not to use those services. So
It's created an issue with renters in the building too.
Yeah, it's caused the job center, people have been complaining now about it. So we figured we had to add something to get to have some teeth, because our legal counsel and our police say we have nothing we can do.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended language in the policy. Entertain a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Ben. Let's open this up for discussion. Go ahead, Natasha.
I am wondering if it's necessary to have, under the behavior guidelines, having an offensive body odor or including excessive scent. I figure that probably people are going to get removed for loitering or being loud, and I just don't know if we necessarily have to say that people can't smell when they come in here. That just seems a little restrictive, you know, because people are probably going to smell if they're doing any kind of exercise in here. Or, you know, like, do we really have to talk about how they smell?
But I got Conan. I used to work in food service, and we would have problems with some very strong scents.
And we have had.
And so just imagine you're trying to host your birthday party, and there's somebody, for whatever reason, is quite offensively ordered. this isn't saying you have to say, well, you know, you should use deodorant today, but this just gives somebody a tool in the event there's something that disruptive. But from a food service point of view, when you're trying to do an event and you've got somebody that is clearly not showered, clearly got something else on their clothes, you just want some mechanism here to say, and it gives you, you know, there's always going to be an element of debate and discretion here, but at least you've got a tool that can say, you know, we need to move this somewhere else.
I think, and I think there was trouble with it, right? I mean,
There still is.
yeah.
So our legal counsel advised that it's tough to enforce, what you're referring to. It's a tough thing to enforce. We also have an individual who has accidents in his pants and proceeds to just sit there in different forums, whether it's a senior talk or this, and you're like, okay, at what point do you you have to do something about it?
Well, then you
just
could-
happened?
And
People don't wanna come back.
attend certain events because of it also.
Exactly, we're not going to come because this is extreme smell. So
But I think
this
at the
gives
end of
you
the
the
loitering,
tools.
we could look at the loitering, but if they're there doing a service, participating, but unfortunately have a situation in their pants. And this is from the library has the same individual who will do it there and here.
Would excessive scent also include like perfume that maybe some people would find offensive or have allergies to?
I'm sure it could be, you know, I guess.
I'm just
Our legal
for
counsel said
definition's
it's
sake.
hard, it's a tough one to stand on.
But at least there's something in writing where we could address it.
it gives you, you can start the conversation here.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I don't think this person's going to go to jail at this point, but it gives you a starting
And
point.
we wouldn't even necessarily kick them out, you know,
Right.
it just, it at least starts, yeah.
Starts the conversation.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead. Yep.
I'm wondering, do we have any sort of policy similar to this for our parks? I'm just thinking, you know, what if a family decides to camp out all summer at Wenzo Plaza in a tent? Like, do we have any sort of policy for our
Okay.
parks for sexual behavior,
We
indecent, you know?
don't, and that's an interesting thing, because we don't have a loitering or this type of policy for the city as a whole. And we do have the park hours, so they have to leave at, but we have hours here too, but they could come every day and occupy the same space and just sit there, which we do have people doing that in a park. But they typically go to a location that's remote, not occupied by a lot of people. And we have to deal with them because they leave litter and other things behind. But then they will also leave from that park to another park to another park. So they kind of jump around from location to location. But we haven't had the complaints about it. I think here, being on an enclosed space, it was recognized. And I thought about that, what your same question is, like, what are we gonna do for the next step if we have loitering in our parks, or camping, or individuals setting up a makeshift home for 8, 9, 10 hours a day? You know, how are we gonna handle that? So that'll probably be coming to the committee in the near future too.
Other questions? I wonder if you can include some kind of language about senior center activities in section C. The only reason I say that is there may be activities that are not scheduled, that are not a class. You know what I'm saying? You know, where they get together and they're meeting in their room, and you know, I don't know if it's playing billiards or cards, where it's not really a scheduled thing, but they're doing it. And I'd hate for that to be something that could be considered loitering. You know, is there a way to just include senior center?
Well, in C, we have it participating in CC, just so everyone knows.
Participating in what?
Participating or setting up of a scheduled event, activity, or class.
Okay,
And
so
we do have
scheduled is
actually
not,
reservation fee
scheduled
for all
does
that
not
stuff.
assume to be in activity or class? That's okay then?
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
all right,
like you just said,
Yep.
billiards, we have, you name it,
Okay.
arts and crafts,
Okay.
sewing groups.
I'm good with that, yeah.
Come in and that's.
I was assuming it had to be scheduled, but that's,
No,
all
well,
right,
But most of that is scheduled.
they're all
anyways.
scheduled.
Okay.
They are, like reserve the rooms for them and stuff.
okay,
We'd schedule them.
okay.
So I see what you're saying, that fits in there.
Okay.
Sorry, I just
Go
have one
ahead.
more question. How is enforcement going to be handled with this, and what does that look like?
Typically, we would have a conversation with the individual, let them know we have a policy and see what goes from there. If it doesn't
So like,
rectify itself,
would you
we
be
get
the
police
like,
involved.
authority? Right.
What's that?
Would you be the authority that people would go to?
I don't have the authority to remove a person from a building.
Okay.
That's a police. That's a.
So these are just guidelines that you're using to have the police enforce?
Yes.
Okay. That answers the question.
Police said you have a policy, just like businesses can have certain policies.
Right.
If you don't adhere to a private business's rule or policy, they can remove you. It's a little different, but right now we have nothing. That's what our legal counsel, our police said, you have nothing on paper. So obviously you start with a nice conversation and you see where it goes from there. And then you don't want to get police involved unless you absolutely have to. And I don't anticipate we would have to, but you never know. At least now we have something.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Last chance for questions, discussion. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Dustin. We are on to item 7, which is the Vandahay Waters concessions.
All right, with Vandahay Waters last year and month, over a month, we operated our concessions with employees. It's been considered as a kind of a budgetary cut that we consider doing a contracted operation. It's not uncommon for municipal pools to contract out certain aspects of their operations. It could be everything, it could be some things, it could be just lifeguarding, it could be concessions, and who knows in between. So there is different aspects. One of the things that we looked at and was considered by our administration was contracting out our concessions as reducing the expense. Our city budget has quite a deficit to fill in, and Steve will get to talk about that. Steve Barger, our administrator, will talk about that on Monday. But one of the things to look at is how will we reduce our expenditures on Vandahay. That's about, let's see, what do we have? About $90,000 in expenses related to those operations. We can contract it out, and when you contract it out, you do have some pros and cons. By contracting out, we'll have a pro of reduction in force, so we'll have a reduce in staffing. We'll have less work stress, so coordinating, hiring staff, managing staff, scheduling staff, dealing with disciplinary actions. And then you also have a reduction in cash handling. There's not any cash handling going on, so there is those pros. The cons, what we see is a lot of loss of control. We may lose control of what menu items are put on there, what pricing is put in place, our customer service, because we can't control the contractor. However they want to treat the customer, they can. We obviously can have conversations, but we can't discipline them like we can discipline our staff. And then quality control, what is being done, how it's being done. So there are some pros and cons to both of them. I think our staff is open to either. Operating concessions is difficult. It's more difficult than you think. Staffing is a challenge because it's hard to find staff today. Most of our staff don't mind it, but it's not the most desirable job we have at our aquatic facility. So there's both pros and cons. This is mostly being driven by a budgetary decision on trying to reduce the expenditure side of our budget and save some dollars. We would enter into some sort of negotiation in which we would retain some sort of percentage of profits. Maybe it's 10, 15, 25, 30% of profits, whatever that would end up being. The contractor would come in and pretty much run all concessions during our operating hours, work with Amanda on when that would be. Amanda would obviously have the decision when to close and when to open. We would also work with them on our party packages. So we do currently have a party package in which they can rent the shelter and then get food as part of their package. I think there'll be some challenges, but our system, our building is set up to have complete locked access to both sides. So once they're in, they wouldn't be able to get over to the lifeguard side, and our lifeguards wouldn't be able to get over to that side. So there wouldn't be a risk of like theft. We do have cameras throughout the system, so we'll be able to keep monitoring what happens in that concession stand. So if something does happen, we could be able to identify who was the culprit or potential culprit if that does occur. So there are some pros and cons. Usually something like this, if at the beginning, would be a staff kind of direction, but I thought being that Vandahay is new and it's kind of a sensitive topic of how we do concessions there, it'd be great to bring it to this committee to kind of bounce it off of you guys, see what your thoughts are and see what direction we may go.
Hey, do I have any motion?
Is there a motion here, or is this just?
There is no, there's a recommendation to contract out concessions for a 1-year trial basis.
I'll make
That's-
that motion.
Okay. Brett? Anybody, do I get a second?
I'll second.
Ally's second. Let's have some discussion. Anyone?
What, have other facilities?
Yeah.
Weston does contract out their concessions. It's, I'll say about par. There's some that have used like
Sure.
Subway as their contracted service.
Okay.
Cedarburg uses Subway. Weston's like a mom and pop, they just contract it out. I haven't like surveyed a number of facilities. I would do that if that's the direction we go, to kind of replicate whatever they have for a contract. But I haven't taken that step because I felt if it doesn't go past the committee, I'm not gonna waste my time doing that. But yes, there are other aquatic facilities who have contracted out.
I have a question. So what concessions do they have now? And like, what would we see under like a private operation? And would there be restrictions on type of food, for instance? or-
Well, I'll let Amanda talk about what they have now, but we're restricted by our kitchen itself. Our kitchen doesn't have a deep fryer, and it doesn't have fries, so you're restricted by what food you can prepare. It's pretty much a warming kitchen. You can warm like pre-made food, like a pizza or chicken tenders, but you can't like deep fry fries and fry a burger. That can't happen. I mean, you can if you want to stick a significant amount of investment in it, but that probably won't happen. Amanda, what are our food options we have now?
Well, we've had a million, so it's not going to be quite as many next year if I'm doing this. Hot dogs, chicken tenders, mini corn dogs, mozzarella sticks, 3 flavors of pizza, 100 ice cream options, 10 slushy flavors, nacho cheese, cups, walking tacos, and then all the drinks. So everything's bottled, but it's soda, water, Gatorade, lemonade, iced tea, applesauce, Greek yogurt was available, but not one sold this summer, just so everybody knows.
Nobody.
Trying to think what else. I rattled off a bunch there. That's
Yeah,
it.
have we had any issue with like food getting into the pool? Or would
No.
we have anything like the contractor would also have to provide bottled versus open container?
I have no idea.
I
That's
think
a-
you could probably set some stipulations, like.
Yeah.
there's
One of the things
guidelines.
that we, like a bottle, like a fountain soda, we don't have that machine there that makes that ice, so they'd have to buy that. We bought a cooler, sliding cooler, you can see, so I don't think the individual would have incentive to do that, because that's quite an investment for their first year. I assume they would just buy the bottle beverage from whatever distributor.
They'd probably go can just for cost effectiveness is what I would think.
I think most use the bottles, I'm not sure why, if it's just
I don't even know
lifespan.
if cans are available at the concessions. place that I-
As for the menu, I think you're kind of getting at what was our menu before and what are the potential of the future menu. We don't quite know that. We might get like a food truck vendor who might say, well, I want to add more meal type situation or meals rather than just a tenders. And that could be something more fresh. I don't know. It could be someone like an actual cook who does these things in prepackaged or something.
And I am in favor of this, so I think that's worth, throwing out there. I think it's a good idea if a private business wants to take a shot at doing something and we don't want to do it anymore. If it's a loss for us, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
Natasha?
So, I remember, Justin, a while ago, you told me that the committee decided they wanted to have low prices for the concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, the prices were low. Like, I went there and I was like, this is the best deal in town. Like, I can't even go to Walmart for this. But because of that, we lost money. So, if we go private, obviously they're gonna triple the price probably. So, we just need to realize that. And, they're not gonna do it again unless they make money. So the only way they can make money is by having high prices. But can we break even if we just go to normal prices?
You're already charging $3 for a bottle of soda. You want to charge $6?
Well, no, they were like super cheap, like the slushies. How much was the slushie?
$3 for like a small cup like that. And then a refill on the slushy tumblers was $1, but we made Honestly, it's 19 cents is what it costs in supplies to make a slushie this big. So to sell it for $2 or $3, you're making a lot of money on that.
So if we didn't make money by getting, you know, like $2.80 per slushie as profit, but then you have to pay for staff, how's a private firm gonna make money?
They don't hire staff, they do it themselves,
Yeah, one
right?
person probably
That's what the
does that for kids.
$42,000 in staff costs, because they're not gonna take a $32,000 loss, right?
Right.
So did you need all that staff then? I mean, the question is how, you know, should we look at, could we do this better in a business sense?
Mhm.
Because obviously if a business comes in, their whole thing is gonna be profit, and what if we just break even?
Well, one of the differences in a business sense is you'll probably have a parent, maybe an adult,
Grown up.
run it, and then use friends or family to contract it out and hire. Similar to what you may see at a Dairy Queen or a Melody Gardens or even a Hub City Ice Cream, where you have one owner who spends a significant amount of time there making sure things are ran. Right now, we have 16, 17, 18-year-old kids.
14, 15, 16-year-olds.
Making things
There's no
run.
18-year-olds there.
And it's hard, to incentivize it, it's not, when you own a company, you see the profit and you're incentivized by profit. We're not incentivized by profit, nor are we designed or asked to make money for it, we're asked to make it affordable. And so you'd have to change your philosophy and say, well, we want you to make it more of a profit-making operation. And that's a big philosophical difference between like municipal and private is sent to generate a profit. And then when you do that, you exclude certain people and you exclude certain groups. And if we were to do that, I think we would be in a lot of scrutiny as a municipality.
I do think, I'm sort of aligned with you, I do think prices are going to go up.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
With the private entity. So I think we just have to be ready for that. And just be ready to explain that it would have happened with, I mean, to your point, we would have had to raise the prices too, right? Because we can't, it doesn't make sense for the city to lose this kind of money. So right now with our staffing, we'll say maybe not the most skilled staffing, we're going to have to raise prices. So we're hoping that we get more efficiency. But one way or the other, the price is going to go up. And we will probably inevitably hear about it. But I think everything's going up, right? So,
Except wages.
Any other?
For
Okay, I would
the
agree.
staff that I have to hire to run
I
a
agree
very
with you.
expensive concession stand.
I'm on your side on that
Okay,
one.
just saying.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just wanted to note, like, obviously whoever gets it will be run through background check, that sort of thing. Stating the
They'll have to
obvious,
have
I know.
insurance.
Yeah.
I wanted to check.
And that's something that I assume a contract that's been in place with another municipal aquatic facilities already had to run into.
Just have one other quick question. Do you think this will help your staffing challenges by not having to fill all these other slots? Did you find any of the students were incentivized, like they want to be in the, they like being in the concessions because it's shade, it's kind of cool, but boy, if I got to be
They
outside.
didn't want to be in the concessions, that was their least favorite part, because
Oh,
they're
there you
actually going to
go.
interact with more people and do something. I
Okay.
mean, honest, I'm just being honest with you.
No, I'd rather know that.
Some, I will say, there's probably a handful that enjoy being in concessions because time went by faster, right? Because you're constantly busy. But I would say the majority of them, slide monitor was the least favorite, then concessions was the second least favorite. So, front desk was the coveted
Where
slot.
the action is.
Okay. I just want to, I'm inclined to vote against this for a couple of reasons. And I think for me, the biggest one is like we lose control of it, and then it kind of affects the overall perception of the aquatic center, and we don't really have control of how the customer service is, and the pricing and that type of thing. But I think the reason I'm going to vote for it is that it's a one-year trial. I'd really like to try it out and see how it goes, and then bring it back to the committee after that year to discuss and what went well, what didn't. And then what we hear as a committee as well. So I think that's the saving grace on this one for me, just to make it a one-year trial.
And I just want to voice too, because I think I know where you're going with, if the city's not committed to raise the wages, I've got to imagine your chances of hiring next year are going to be even worse.
I've had already feedback that they're not coming
Right,
back.
so
unless
we don't
they-
have people coming, if we don't bring someone else in and we don't change the wages we're going to pay these students,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to be empty.
Yeah, yeah. The
Another
other-
thing that's a little bit difficult when you talk about wages too, it's like, I expect them to be these top-notch employees, but I have a week to train them after they get out of school, maybe before we open the pool. This time we opened a day after school got out. But then I only have them for 11 weeks anyway, so if they're 2 weeks in and they're like, well, we're halfway done with the summer, like,
Yeah.
what do they care if they learn, you know?
Yeah.
That's a really difficult thing to overcome.
The other concern I have is, let's say that you do put out RFPs and we've given you the approval to do this, but you don't get any takers. You don't want that to be a non-operational entity, right? You're going to operate it then,
Well, there'll
correct?
be 100% concession.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good.
No,
Okay.
That's my fear is.
That's
there's
my
no one
fear too.
Even
Yeah.
interested in,
Right,
we have to make that decision extremely quickly.
Yep.
Because kids will start looking for summer jobs by February, March.
okay. All right, we have a motion, a second. Any other questions, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That recommendation carries. Thank you. Moving along. We are on to Wenzo Plaza restrooms. Justin, is this you?
Yes.
Where's this Nikki? Okay.
Nikki
Yeah.
can weigh in.
Yeah.
She obviously knows the Plaza better than all of us. But the original plan for Wenzo had restrooms. Funding was short and restrooms were cut primarily because many of the other items in the plaza had some sort of sponsorship attached to them. So it made sense to cut the restrooms. In addition, the 400 block in Wausau does not have restrooms, so it was kind of an easy sell, no sponsorship dollar, and the 400 block in Wausau, which is similar to our design, doesn't have them, so let's cut the restrooms. But after that, and after things were made and constructed in a couple years of operation, we have heard a lot of outcry to have some sort of restroom at that location, especially as it relates to the fountain and the concert series and the yoga and things of that nature. It was scheduled in the CIP plan for 2026, and then it was recommended to be moved from 2026 to 2023, and that was approved. So that means we want to build these restrooms next year, next summer. And to get that moving along, we have to go out for RFP, or not for RFP, to get a design service company to design the restrooms and then start construction, but we also have to put them somewhere. And our staff is not just the people sitting in this room, but engineering staff, public works, street department, police. Kaylee, I think, was even consulted for Main Street. There's a lot of people that were involved in kind of spearheading where are these going to be. We looked at neighboring facilities, if you guys, it's the boardroom, right?
Mhm.
The boardroom was considered, but obviously that's a business now that's doing really well. There's other businesses surrounding it or near it that we looked at, but those were taken off the table by the owners. We looked at maybe behind the stage as a possible location, but it didn't really fit there. There's some utility conflicts. We have water coming in on one side and there's a pit on the other side for the sound as well as storm sewer. And we didn't really want to go along the sides, kind of in the alley and along Chestnut, because it kind of stuck out kind of oddly there. We wanted to go on that north side somewhere, and that's where it was originally scheduled, was actually the northeast corner. But that takes away some green space. We have food trucks that kind of go over there. We have electric pedestals over there. So we kind of shied away from that. And actually, I think Nikki came up with the idea of, why don't we just stick it behind a pergola? It's kind of a backdrop. It won't be blocking any views. It's still accessible. People don't have to cross the road. We even considered going across the parking lot to the public parking lot to the north, but there was some concern by our engineering department really encouraging mid-block crossing and kids not paying attention and potential risk of getting hit by a vehicle. So they want to discourage any type of mid-block or block crossing. So we picked this location. The actual size is about 20 by 60. That's that red square on there, okay? That does not mean that's the actual size of the restroom. That just tells you that's the amount of space we have to play with. We're not going to have a 60-foot wide restroom facility, but 20 feet by probably 40 feet or 20 feet, I don't know. I'll wait and see when we get to the design phase. But the idea is to pick this location, get it designed and get it bid out as soon as possible because just like everything, you want to get on the construction schedule really early in the season for many contractors. And our construction season usually starts sometime when the frost gets out of the ground, which will probably be around April, May. And then it takes sometimes a long time, and there's sometimes lead times. We looked at doing a control panel for electric in the fairgrounds. It's a 62-week lead time for that. You will not even get it by next year's fair, and that's how bad some things are. Most things are not that bad, but a control panel for electric is that bad. So what we're looking for today is approval of the location and retain a firm to start design and construction documents.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Ally, second?
I'll second it.
Ben? Ben's a second. Questions and discussion, please. Yes.
All right, so I was just thinking, wherever we put it, we do need to remember that the door should face the splash pad so parents can see their kids going in and out of a restroom if they're not accompanying them. Because we don't want it across the street where someone could grab a kid and no one sees it. So I would definitely say we need to remember that. How close, and Nikki, maybe you know this, how close do you think this is going to be to people eating at those tables?
Because of the design of where we're considering putting it, there is an incline or a decline to that. It would not be close to the pergola wall necessarily. It's going to be more on the sidewalk side. We have tables coming that are different than what we currently have there, and that placement can be strategically placed according to the bathrooms.
The doors will have to be on the street side.
But the doors will have to be on the street side.
We have a 2-foot change in elevation from the sidewalk on the street to where the pergola is.
Correct.
Not ideal.
And we did look at
If we put the doors
both
on that side, we
scenarios.
would have a significant challenge with snow removal operation and ice and dam buildup because of how the slope is and where water naturally runs.
EDA too.
And ADA.
Yeah.
So we looked at that very specifically, there's nothing perfect, we should have, we built it, but we did it. So we're left coming up with a design. So the doors will be on the street side, but right now, the doors for the porta-john are facing the alleyway. Not that that's any right or wrong thing, but.
Yeah.
What about putting them on the ends? Is that possible? Doors on the ends, at
On the
least you can.
We talked about that too, but.
Yeah, I mean, now we're not into the design phase, but that's something.
Right,
we're looking
understood,
at.
yeah. But I mean, it's a concern. I'd agree that's a concern.
Well, because if I have 3 kids who are in a splash pad and one has to go to the bathroom, if I have to gather all 3 kids to go there to make sure that one little 4-year-old is safe, what a pain. But if I can watch them go and come.
Okay.
Yeah, the flow of traffic too, because of the way the pergola is designed, is also why we considered it to be on the street side. Because if you've been in that area, mostly on the back side of the pergola, there's a cement structure that borders it. So there's one little area that you can walk through. Flow of traffic just does not make sense unless we have it on the sides or the street side.
Okay, other
I
questions?
think in the design process, we're gonna have to really consider those doors on the park side,
Yeah.
not on the street side, and challenge our architectural engineering firm what they can do to at least help out with that, because that is a reality. We designed our restrooms and our pool with that very thought in mind, that I have 5 kids, 3 kids, 2 kids, whatever. Now I don't gather them up to go, so now the kid can actually get out of the water, walk to the bathroom, I can watch them the entire way there and the entire way back. And for us not to do that here would not make sense, but we're gonna have some challenges, and we wanna make sure that we can make it work, but I can't guarantee anything, just because we know there's a change in elevation, about 2 feet in ADA compliance. little challenges on how that works, but we'll let an architect figure that one out.
Now, was the challenge on this corner, was that just too much to put it right there?
No,
Is
there's a electric there, but there's also where the food trucks typically park. The food trucks wouldn't park there.
Yeah, we have 3 pedestals along the plaza that, only 3, that food trucks can utilize. And we would not be able to put permanent bathrooms near one of those pedestals.
Is that an electric pedestal?
Correct.
We can't move those?
No, we can move them.
We can move them, but
I don't
we
know.
also have a
Moving them.
spacing issue.
I don't know where
too.
the food truck would,
Right, we don't know where in the plaza where we could potentially move that.
Well, I mean, because one time there was an ice cream truck that was on this street.
They
Yeah.
probably weren't utilizing the power, and if they were utilizing one of the utility poles, which technically that doesn't allow for enough power for a food truck to have.
Because I think it would be interesting to say, you know, like, to limit where a bathroom can go because of a food truck. I love the food trucks, but food trucks move.
It's
So-
also not just with the food truck though, it's also with the space in the plaza. The green space is pretty precious because we don't have a lot of it due to the splash pad. And so we do utilize that green space mostly during festivals, Hub City Days, Dairy Fest. If we take away any of that green space, and in the map it kind of looks like it's a big space, but it's really not. So that's the other aspect of why we chose the location we did.
I think too, if you get into design phase and tell your designers, these are some of the criteria, you may find, for example, on the east side, there is a way to put one door. Maybe one door is able to swing one
Right.
way. You know, keep in mind, they're gonna have to look at grades, how do you drain the site, and so put it in as this is one of our must-do. We have to figure out one way to, even if you got one door on one side, you might have the others on the back side, but then you could always say to the kids, I want you to use the door on the right side, right?
And I mean, it's, right now, looking at this, I mean, it's a large red rectangle
You
that
just
looks
got
out
it.
of place. I'm assuming the design is gonna like fit in with the plaza, right? I mean, it's gonna be something that's
safer.
similar in color, in, you know, architecture. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have an idea for that. I'm talking so much, but anyhow, I've had this idea for months and months and months. Wouldn't it be cool if it looked like, because it's a railroad motif, it looked like a ticket station and it had the little things like Royal Tokyo for the roof? You know how Royal Tokyo, because it used to be the ticket station. Wouldn't that be cool?
I'd like it, yeah.
It'd be awesome.
yeah, the design elements will blend in with the railroad, red brick and tan, so it'll blend in, so we're not gonna do like a different design element with it, so. That is one thing, but I do like the idea of the,
Mhm.
whatever you call
Yeah, I
it,
don't
awning
know.
things.
I don't know, but I was looking at Royal Tokyo and I was like, that could be a bathroom.
So we, I have a couple things. Did you guys, and I'm assuming you thought about this, but there's like a city property right here across the street, that Baltus building.
The Baltus building is owned by the city, but it's part of the Second Street Community Center, our Second Street development plan that's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and that was actually leading into my second question, and I see that the economic development funds will be available for this, right? So,
Mhm.
so this location is okay with the EDB, correct?
Right.
Yeah, good. All
It
right.
actually will follow in with that, hopefully, that plan. The fact that we're doing bathrooms on
Yep.
the north side,
Yep.
it will provide public bathrooms
Yep.
for the second.
Okay, cool.
And one of the things that we took into consideration is there's a Second Street development plan. There's actually no significant plan like it's gonna start next year.
Understood.
And there's so many pieces of that puzzle that need to fall in place that are a lot of times out of the city's control altogether. It
Get
may
it.
be 10 years or 12 years, and do we put a bathroom there and then in 10 years or 12 years, that's no longer even on the table and something else has changed direction, and we want to sell that property to a developer. And now we have a public restroom on a corner of a lot from the PD, and so I'd rather say, okay, just put it in the plaza. We can control this. We know what it's going to be in 10 years, 20 years, or even 100 years. Hopefully it's still plaza. And I agree, but if they had the second street, like, okay, we're starting construction on this, and it fits in, that's a no-brainer.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. Is that it? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you. Sledding Hill, and I'm guessing this is Justin. Item 9.
He's a busy man tonight.
The Park and Rec Department has been working with Marshall Utilities, not for a long time by any stretch of the imagination, but more of in passing and talking about more or less, we need a sledding hill in our community where would be a good spot for it. Everyone's like, well, everyone slides over by the YMCA, either at Storm Retention Pond or up on the hill. And I always said, well, it'd be great to do some sort of sledding hill over there, because that's our only hill in the entire city. And so that was pretty much the end of the conversation. And then Nick, general manager for Marshall Utilities, approached me and said, hey, what do you think about doing a sledding hill where they currently sled? I'm like, well, yeah, sure, if you're up for it, but it's all your property. Do you want to change the scope of your property? He's like, well, let me see what I can figure out, but I don't want to get too far down the road and find out this is just not very favorable, whether it's by his utility commission, whether it's by city residents, whether it's by the committee or anything like that. Let's just throw some things out there first, and then if people seem in favor of it, let's go out and actually get some designs and actually get some not construction plans, but cost estimates of what it would do. So in your packet is kind of a 3-phase design. Like Nick made these fancy boards. I don't know how to do with them because I don't want to look like Vanna White up here. But phase 1 is regrading, which is probably the most work, which is regrading this site here and making sure they don't slide into the fence like they currently do, because it was never designed to be a sledding hill. And people have said to me several times, that is a sledding hill. I said, no, it is not a sledding hill. It's a hill with snow that people sled on, but it was never designed to actually be a sledding hill, because we would do doing a bad job if every kid ran into the fence in designing it. So you can see there's kind of lanes, and have 6 lanes kind of going down with a slow down area. We'd use hay bales just to kind of protect the safety of the observers, and then a slow down area, and then benches. For the most part, the cost would be primarily in excavation and grading of this area to make it work for snow.
Quick question then, does this have to be staffed by city employees or some?
No, it would not be staffed. There would not be like a ticket.
Staff.
It'd be like it is right now.
Okay,
but
just shaped better.
it'd be just done so you don't run into a fence or whatever else might be out there. The second phase, which would be, you can see more of like a tent and some different areas, food truck area, a warming house. This is pretty minor, a donation box. I think this one would have, for some reason, a selfie spot. I guess that's something that we need to have. And
What's a selfie spot, Justin?
that's where you take selfies. And then we would probably incorporate, instead of just walking the hill, some sort of timbers for stairs. So it'd be like stairs. And then phase 3 would be more of the larger one, which would be the incorporation of a parking lot, light, sound for the area, and some sort of warming house and magic carpet, which is that, you guys know what magic carpet is, right, for sledding hills.
But that point would be staffed.
That point where we'd have to have some sort of staffing. And all these phases may or may not even be incorporated, where you could definitely just have the parking lot and not do a magic carpet or a warming house, and just say it's a sledding hill, which most kids go out sled for an hour or two and then just go home and get some hot cocoa or go to Starbucks to take some selfies. So what we're essentially looking for is we're kind of putting our finger in the wind and saying, hey, is this something we should continue pursuing, or is this something that's just not worth our time, energy, and effort? And this is a cooperative effort between Marshall Utilities and the Parks and Recreation Department. Funding has not been allocated, nor budgeted, nor discussed. So we have to figure out what those numbers are, and then find out if we want to move forward with them. This is just very high level, but I'm not in one that hasn't enough time to invest into something that's not gonna actually come to fruition, and spend a year planning a sledding hill just to find out the community, the council, and the commission are just not in favor of it. So we're looking for kind of your direction or your opinion or your thoughts on putting a sledding hill at that location.
Go ahead, Ally.
I just have to say, Brenda Bauer, past Park and Rec member, would be 100% in favor of this, because she was the one who recruited me to take her spot onto this committee, and this was the one thing she couldn't do when she was in Park and Rec. So I think it's super in favor. I think public would love it. You know, my question would be, are you gonna groom lanes like are proposed, or is it gonna be a free-for-all? And I think another thing that could be very positive, and I love the mush.
I know, isn't that good?
I love it, I absolutely love it, but I also think
Oh, I didn't even know.
this,
What is?
Oh,
but I,
I mean, John was like, what is mush?
it is called, I love
Mush.
it. But I also think this is
Like
a
that
really
Iditarod.
positive thing to be viewed by the public from the utility standpoint as well. I think it would be
100%.
awesome, not necessarily maybe viewed as a give back by some, but I think it would be very cool.
Yeah, it's another benefit we get from having municipal utility that I think citizens don't really understand the benefit of that always. Maybe when they get their bill, sometimes not, but when they see something like this, a private company is not going to build you a sledding hill, so I think it's pretty cool.
yeah. I love the idea. I think it's really needed. I, for one, have run into that fence
Me too.
in the past. But I don't think that we really need a motion today for this, but
We don't need a
I
motion,
think,
we're just
I
looking
think
for
just,
feedback.
yeah, feedback. I mean, my feedback would be absolutely pursue this as fast as you possibly can. I mean,
I'll second
that's, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think any time that you can get kids or families outside during the winter, and we have an activity for them to do in Marshfield, I mean, what's bad about that? You know, so I think the only thing that's gonna be the clincher, of course, is gonna be, does it cost money over the years, and who's gonna pay the money? That's always the question.
And I would also want to see that there's some operational funds set aside, because I could see wanting to re-groom this once in a while. You know, we go for a number of days without some new snow, it gets pretty slippery or crunchy or bad,
Our
so.
kids will build a hill on there and then they'll do the jump,
Yeah.
which is
Oh,
why
yeah.
I went down
Fun.
and I did not see the jump.
Leave some picnic tables out there just for that reason.
I look forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really cool.
One of the things that we'll look at, and something that our department really strives for, is when we design a building, long-term maintenance and what it's gonna do to our department operational, and reducing that almost day-to-day oversight on a facility. We don't want that to have a staff person out there or even staffing it every day. That's not an effective use of public tax dollars. It's to try to build it and just let it be. Our fountain is a good example of, in Wenzo, just there. I think he's not there every day watching people run around. And as a bottler, which you start, which is great, and it's done in 16 minutes. And you gotta push it again so the water's not constantly running. This design, I would love to see and figure out what do other municipalities do. I know Stevens Point's got a kind of a toboggan run, which I'm not interested in.
Yeah, and we've it's been on our list to do, but we've never done it.
We ice skate here, we have like 3 ice skating facilities, and that's a lot of investment, not only by man hours, but by water and equipment, and then just one warm day that's gone. We're completely dependent on snowfall.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna get a snowmaking machine.
No.
Go to Granite Peak or Howard's Bluff or wherever else they make snow. But I think it's a win-win, something I've identified as a need in this community.
Yeah, and I would just like to state, I really do appreciate our partnership with Marshfield Utilities. It always hasn't always been the best, right, in the past, and I really think that things have changed, and I really appreciate this forward thinking. It's gonna be great.
You know, John, as you mentioned that, we've partnered now with them on the Welcome Center.
Yep.
They were instrumental in the electrical grid there. We've partnered with them on the I don't call it the butterfly garden, but what is that thing at Greasy? Because it's pollinator garden, rain garden type thing.
Yep.
We work with them at the zoo quite a bit on different exhibits.
Yep, understood, absolutely.
So yeah, we do,
Yep.
our pool project's a great example of two you didn't think we'd be able to coexist, and now we can definitely coexist in parking in our parking lot. We're talking, it's a very open relationship.
Excellent, yeah, much appreciated, thanks. All right, send them our positive recommendations.
I will do
Great,
that.
all right. All right, we are on to item 10. This is swim lesson partnership. I believe Director Casperson has this one. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm talking too much, I'm gonna lose my voice tomorrow. We've been partnering with the YMCA since 1944 with swim lessons.
1990.
What did I say?
44.
Sorry.
Wow, long time.
Wow. He's been talking.
He's talking too much.
Way too. 1994 for all you watching at home. The idea behind the partnership was we competed not only for swim lesson users, but swim lesson instructors and pool time. And I think we were probably offering lessons at the high school as well as HEFCO. They were offering lessons there. Rather than compete with each other, we decided to partner with each other. And now the city pays the YMCA a stipend. The lessons have a 3-tiered system, so it's if you're a Y member, you pay X amount. I think it's kind of on our agreement here. From 2020, a Y member would pay 40. If you lived in the city but you were not a Y member, you pay 48. If you were not a city resident and not a Y member, you'd pay 58. So a little bit of a jump, and we would incentivize them to be Y members. Our agreement has gone well. Probably back in 2018, maybe 17, we just went to a stipend. We didn't actually track each individual and then calculate what we owed. We just said, okay, we've calculated over the last 5 years, it comes out to about X amount. Let's just say it's $4,500 a year, and we'll increase that each year based off the cost of living adjustment, and it stayed pretty consistent. That was a lot of work for the YMCA to track every single user, and then what the difference was, and whether all of that criteria. So we came up with the idea that we're just going to check, it's going to be $4,500, and then we're going to increase it each year. I think for 2023, it's $4,913. So what the Y does is they take the registrations for their swim lesson programs. They enroll the child, get them set up. They have to provide the instructor, the facility, the curriculum, the evaluation, and whether the child passes or fails or moves on. And then what we do is we just cut them a check and send it to them. It was recommended by administration to consider this as a budget reduction, and that's why it's kind of coming in front of you guys to see if we want to continue doing this and see if it's worthwhile or to terminate it. I know Amanda has been in communication with the YMCA and probably can fill in anything that I may have forgotten or missed.
I've got the numbers from 2018. They had 638 city residents who were not Y members participate in their swim lessons at the discounted rate. And then in 2019, it went down to 604. In 2020, which was the COVID year, it was 101. And then 2021 was 449. And then so far this year, they're at 391. So she was saying it would be close to 500 by the end of the year, but my average is average up.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, I mean, the couple years that she gave me pre-COVID numbers were around 600, and then post-COVID's been around 475.
It almost looks like if you're saying there's about 500 people and the delta is, what, $8 or $10? It's almost a wash, right? It's not like we're losing or making money, it's sort of.
Well, we don't get any money from it. We just pay them
Right,
the
but
amount.
the amount of our people that are using that
Right.
seems to about balance. Plus or minus a couple of
Correct.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's trending downward is the point you were.
Well, it's 500 people.
Yeah,
And
it's
there was
actually
a
the
dip
same.
due to COVID, but then it's sort of rebounded.
Yeah. I'll give you what my concerns are, and then we can all talk about concerns and questions. But I mean, I think this disproportionately impacts lower income people. Without knowing, you know, the income of the people who are signing up, I'm just thinking that they're not Y members, maybe for a reason.
Sure.
And that 40, what is it, $4,700, that subsidy for you not using staff to, you know, I just think that that's a service that the city needs, and that if we cut it, those kids won't have an opportunity to learn how to swim.
Sure.
That's my concern.
I guess from my aspect, growing up in a low-income household, we actually got free Y membership because of that. So I feel like the fact that they're non-Y members might not necessarily mean they're not low-income.
I'd have to see the numbers to know that, right? Because that's a large number of people taking swim lessons. But I get what you're saying. They do offer subsidies. There can be a stigma attached to that, and maybe some families aren't, you know, comfortable, you know, asking for a subsidy for Y membership. I don't know that for sure, but I just don't think the cost, for me, the cost isn't worth it.
You need to cut it.
Yeah, right. It's not a lot of money. Understanding we have budget issues.
Right.
Yep, Natasha.
So if I was not a Y member and I was a city resident, first of all, I don't think I would know that the city was giving me a discount.
It's posted in all of our pamphlets and brochures.
It is?
Mhm.
Okay. And the difference would be a $10 difference, if, I think, right? Is that
Plus
right?
plus your membership.
But if I wasn't a Y member,
Right.
then it would be a $10 difference. I am wondering, this
But
is.
it'd probably actually be 20, it would actually be 18, because the city discount gets you down to,
48,
right.
So
So if I'm from Pittsville, then it would be, the delta would be $18.
58, so it'd be 10.
Yeah,
Right, but if the subsidy goes away, they're gonna get rid of this. So
correct.
the first thing they do is get rid of that.
Yep.
So you're either gonna pay $58 or 40.
Right,
Without our subsidy.
right, so
it's-
we're talking about
it's
people who
18.
don't have the membership, right?
And then it would go from a non-member to a member rate if there wouldn't be a city resident.
That's right, you'd go from
Yeah,
just
yeah.
member, it'd be either $40 or 58.
So whatever they decide their non-member rate
True.
is, yeah. yeah.
I understand John's concern that we would have, I mean, to teach 500 kids a year how to swim is super important, especially since we
Yeah.
have an outdoor water park that we want people to know how to swim, so we're not rescuing them. I understand that. I am wondering if potentially we could partner with maybe like Mackey or something to say, could you offer swim scholarships for kids who are at a certain income level? I don't know.
We currently, United Way has a right to
I
play
was
for
just
all
gonna say
program
that.
that does stuff like that, and I believe the YMCA itself has scholarships available for those people who qualify. I can't speak for the YMCA, nor will I, but I do know those things are out there.
I just want to say, like, I was very appreciative of this rate. You know, having 4 kids, you're saving $40. So it made a big difference. And I don't see, to John's point, like, and going back to thinking about the plaza, like, are we going to cut $5,000 out of the budget because we don't want to pay it, but we know it's a good thing to do, and we know it's good for our city members, and once it's gone, it's not going to come back. So, and then we also don't have the contract that says not to exceed 3% increase, so the rates, what they need to be in order for the YMCA to keep running, they're going to have to increase as needed. So I would not be in favor of canceling that.
Do we have a recommendation on
It's
this?
just a discretion.
Okay.
This was brought to us by a budget.
These are,
This wasn't our decision.
the
just-
concessions in this are more of a budgetary
Mhm.
recommendation by administration from the city and saying,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you cut? Mostly because they're new and they don't understand. Like, why are we doing this? I explained to them, like, well, would you cut it? I'm like, think that's a good idea, but you know what I can do? I could bring it to the Park Rec Committee.
Thanks, Justin.
And,
But
well,
he did something.
I could say yes, but then it's on me. Where here, it's like, it's being vetted and talked about and discussed as a whole, and then the direction from this committee could be do nothing, or thumbs up or thumbs down.
I mean, I'll make a motion to continue our agreement with the Marshfield YMCA. I'll go ahead and make that motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Natasha. Is there any other discussion or questions on this?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all in favor?
I-
Opposed? That motion carries. Thanks, Justin. Let's see.
One more.
Well,
Oh, Kristen.
We're getting there. We have a long agenda tonight, you know.
Yeah.
We did. Are you done too?
No, I've got 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Park audits.
You know, because Ally's leaving and I want to just get
Ben and
caught up,
Randy, yeah.
I want to probably just say, turn your park audits in. I think we have one more round, don't we, to go? And then hopefully maybe December, we'll go through it and hash these out. It'll be-
Last year.
I see that on the light
I've been
agenda.
carrying that.
The reason I want to kind of push through real quickly is I'd like to, you guys are, well, I have probably in your place, but Amanda was going to give the Van de Heen Waters report, and so I'd rather just have her talk about that rather than.
Sure.
So if you don't mind, that she wants to leave.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah. Here you go. Start from Al.
If you guys haven't, you can either scan them in or send them to me. Wendy in our office is logging all this information, and if you don't have your stuff turned in, I gotta go find you. I know, John, you lost some of yours, didn't you?
I don't want to talk about it.
All right, so John, I'll turn it around to the reports and go straight to.
They were recycled, I'll give you that. Okay. Let's move on to the reports section then, and start with recreation. Amanda?
All my stuff is pretty standard for the most part up until Van Hay, so it's only a couple minutes, so I'll do that first. The total attendance at Van Hay was 35,400 people.
Wow.
Obviously, last year we were only open for 5 weeks. This year we were open for 11 weeks, so it kind of tracks half-ish. Of those, 65% of that was daily pass check-ins instead of season pass check-ins, which was really surprising to me. I tried to track it with the temperature too, just to, that number on there is average high per summer, like for the whole summer, and just, I was just interested in it to see if it would track it all. I gave the day pass and the season pass breakdown down there, and then on the bottom, it shows the busiest day to be Tuesdays for the whole summer, which I thought was kind of weird. And then, you know, as we talk about operational hours for next year, the weekends are actually the slower times than midweek, so just keep that in mind. The next page, I did revenue versus attendance, and it seems to be tracking just fine. They're correlated perfectly, so that's great, I guess. I gave a revenue summary breakdown here of kind of where all the money was made. And then the cash and check to credit card transactions was really surprising to me, so I wanted to note that too. With the credit cards, we probably had given up about $500 a week to our software company for transaction fees. So just keep that in mind as we talk about prices moving forward too. And then revenue per week, I again just thought it was super interesting that it was basically the same per week in a 5-week period compared to this summer, which was about 11 weeks. Any questions on that?
Thinking that you may want to charge a fee for credit card usage in the future. I mean, that's, places do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more and more
Yeah.
common.
Yep,
People
yep.
don't mind paying them.
I-
We've inquired about ways to
Yeah.
put that processing.
This is all good information, but I reserve the right to ask you questions next month after I read.
Of course,
the
yeah,
digest.
yeah, no, that's
'Cause
fine.
this is,
Well,
yeah,
when she leaves, do we have to?
this is
have a meeting?
cool. Yeah, we've doubled, basically
No.
doubled
Oh,
the
okay,
There's
attendance.
just nothing
That's
that
why I
can
was
be
just
voted
wondering.
on, right?
Yeah,
For
no,
one side week.
no,
Okay, okay.
no. We basically doubled the attendance of HEFCO.
Yeah.
Almost, right?
More like,
Maybe on average,
yeah,
yeah.
and which I honestly was expecting it to be like triple or more.
Yeah.
Because that place is humongous compared to
Yep.
Van Hay, but yeah,
Cool.
double for sure.
Weather was a tricky
One thing I
Weather was
noticed is the
tricky.
revenue compared to attendance is when we had the HEFCO, revenue was below attendance. So following that orange and blue line.
Mhm.
And then you look at 2022, that there's obviously a significant increase in revenues, and I think that's attributed directly to concession sales and what additional concessions will add to a facility.
Mhm.
All things are relative. Why would the blue line be ahead of on top of the orange line? Because it wasn't before, but the only difference is we offer concessions.
Right. Yep, revenue, not expense, right? Expense went up too.
Expenses
Yeah,
on the last,
expenses also.
Yep.
expenses on the last page.
Right.
And then on page 3, I did a breakdown of check-ins per day of the week for the whole summer, just to show the highest and lowest, which is Tuesdays and Saturdays. The only thing I realized after I made that graph, the 2 and under attendance wasn't tracked because it was a totally separate thing that I had to calculate. But that was only 800. So even if you add 800 all to Saturday, it's still way less than Tuesdays. And then the red boxes, we were closed 4 times for weather, and I think it's 18 times we were open partial days, either open late or closed early for weather. We never closed fully for fecal incidents, but all that's here if you have questions for me. This is the one. There's only 2 fecal incidents.
Well, and again,
Not
I
bad.
think having the multiple pools
Yep.
made a huge difference.
Yep, and a way to communicate that via Facebook was helpful, because we could still say, hey, you can still come, but just.
Right, only the slides are open.
Also, the decision not to include those jets that shoot out of the ground.
Geysers?
Yeah,
Free
that was a good decision.
The other thing that I was kind of proud of, we had a question, I think from even Common Council, about it seemed like we were closed a lot, which, yeah, if we posted 20 times that, hey, we're closing early or we're opening late, it does seem like that, because that's probably the only thing about that we did post. But you can see the percentage of scheduled versus actual hours, and it's higher this year than any other years. I thought that was good. And then the last page is the expenses. Broke it down just very generically between wages, utilities, and then equipment. So you can see historically that obviously our revenue is a lot higher, but our expenses also like 0.6. But even with that, the net operations
By Ellie.
by
See you, Ellie.
net operations was only, I mean, it wasn't even comparable compared to HEFCO, I don't think.
Did HEFCO lose more money?
So HEFCO would generate 36 in revenue, and their expenses would be 55, so their net operations were negative 19.
Oh, okay.
And then the size of our facility, and now we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, we only netted negative 60, right?
So percentage-wise, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do percents, but I could do that.
Okay.
And then the staff summary, I just calculated out total hours, because you can see the total wages up top. If there's any questions on that, let me know. And then on duty, just to show you kind of what we had, 1 manager on duty at a time, 10 lifeguards with 8 up and 2 down, meaning 2 kind of on their break. And then we did operate with 7 attendants this year, 2 at the front desk, 1 slide monitor, and 4 in concessions. And that is a generous number, because that's if half my staff didn't call out or come in late, or say they had to randomly leave early. And then the starting pays, I just listed that to give everybody an idea. And I was interested in HEFCO wages compared to our wages, I guess, so that's why I put their wages were around 30, and ours were 180.
Did you have a lot of parties this year? Like people that reserved the,
I should have counted how many. There were, it was $2,700 in revenue for birthday parties, so it was probably like 20 birthday parties.
okay,
Mhm.
cool.
And some had food, they could either include food with it or not
Yeah.
have food with it. Mhm. I would say 99% of them just bought food also.
I think, when this comes to council, because it's coming to council next week, is it coming next week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I I think it would be really important to have this is what we learned from this year, and this is what some of our changes and plans are going to be. Have that ready. Because there's just been a lot of community chatter about, the fact that lifeguards left because they weren't paid enough. There's a lot of community chatter about the manager leaving, about the pool closing, all of that kind of stuff. And so to say, this is our plan for how we're going to, this is the kind of manager we're looking for and how we're going to do this. This is what our plan is for training, recruiting, and retaining our lifeguards. To have that to present, I think is going to be very important because you're going to get asked those questions.
Do we have any lifeguards leave? I don't recall any lifeguards.
Yes, they went to work at other places.
Nobody quit on leave, nobody resigned for me. The manager did, but.
You didn't have any lifeguards leave to go to like Menards for better pay?
We
anything
definitely
like
had
that?
lifeguards, and not lifeguards, but
Working.
all staff work at other
Okay.
places, but they also continue to work there. And if you ask me, wherever was paying more, they always favored. So
Right.
it wouldn't be unheard of a lifeguard to say, I got a job also at Menards, but I'm getting paid $2 more, but I'll keep the lifeguarding thing because I can do that whenever it's convenient. But no one actually said, I quit.
I did have one person who stopped coming, period, and stopped all communication. So that would be one person, but I don't know what happened to that person because they refused to communicate with me.
And our manager.
But I had nobody officially submit a resignation to me except the pool manager, not
I
anybody.
think I would say include that then when you present to council.
Well, yeah, it's not easy to talk about in a public setting why the pool manager quit.
Well,
Well,
not that, but just
just
the
to
fact that
say-
you didn't officially have anyone quit, I think,
Yeah.
other than the pool manager.
And just say, this is our plan for a pool manager. We've learned that we need an adult who's out of college. To say those sort of things and to say these are some of the things that we've learned would be really important. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that you're probably going to want to have like a plan. Because I think it was asked for because community-wise, there's just been some people saying, what's going on? It seems a little chaotic, so.
Didn't have anybody
I haven't heard.
say any chaos towards me at all. Not one person.
That's interesting.
It's all positive, yeah.
I would love for the people that come and talk to the manager
Right.
and I about any of that, if they have concerns or questions. As for chaos,
Absolutely.
it's obviously cold and it's raining and
Yeah.
we were open, I would say, normal, if not exceeded operation days than HEFCO ever did. So we opened earlier than HEFCO did and we stayed open later than HEFCO did.
Well, that's on there too. We had 640 scheduled and HEFCO only ever had under 600, period.
The other thing that, I would almost want to put this on a future agenda item, but I would just mention it for here, is it was so helpful for the few times when it came on my text message that the pool was closing because it went through the communications thing. And I know that communications isn't open on the weekends and stuff, but I really think that a lot of Parks and Rec things, because I don't check Facebook every minute, and if my child says I'm leaving for the pool and I'm like, whoa, I just got a text message, it's closed, is so much better than me having to look on Facebook.
Well, weekends compared to, oh no, I was thinking that was a Sunday there.
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
that is an inherent challenge we face today as a society on how to, and not like, because you could say a text message or a Facebook post or an Instagram or a TikTok or a Snapchat, and it's becoming more difficult to have even a single source or multi-source way of communication because there is no single, even good source anymore because everybody wants to use Facebook. Well, except for those people who use the text messages. And kids are like, well, I don't look at text messages because I only use Snapchat. And why don't you talk to me through Snapchat? Like, well, I use Instagram. My parents don't use that.
Right.
And you're like, okay, how do we actually communicate with each other? Because there's not a good way of doing it. And
MySpace.
MySpace is, I still use that though.
Well, and along those same lines, I'm hiring like young teenagers who some don't even have phones. So, you want me to have a staff of 35 people and to call
But
every single person?
I'm
I know
I'm
what
just saying.
She's saying, what, do we have a cancellation?
Right,
Close.
yeah.
I'm
It
just
was
saying
always
that-
communicated the proper ways, but
Right,
like
but
you
I'm
said, on
saying that the
weekends, they're
city
not.
already has this in place. We already have a text message communication for any citizen who wants to sign up. And
Yeah.
so it would be great to utilize it.
Mhm.
Because for the people who say texts are better than Facebook, let's let them at least know.
Right, and that's inherently the communication aspect is a challenge, because it's Saturday, and we're like, okay, we're closing.
Right, I'm not
All of a sudden,
saying,
you're like, okay,
Yeah.
here's a box, check this person, did you call John White, did you call Justin? You're like, okay, it's a little much, but that's one way, but we have used communication department, probably for over a year now of when the facility was open. And it's one more way of trying to get the message out. And I'm just venting, saying,
And in real
how do we
time.
actually communicate
Yeah.
with the public now?
And then at the end, when we were closed, people were showing up
Yeah.
and calling our office, like, why are you not open? Google says you're open. We're like, well, we don't control what Google says. I literally
You
cannot
can't get your
control
hours
that.
changed on Google that easily.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I don't own Google.
Right.
I'm good
And we
with
do
putting,
just so-
I'm
so-
good with putting this on for a future agenda item, yeah.
Because we
Let's
do
that.
also in our brochure,
Alright.
we post that cancellation option is available in our brochure. So people have that option. It's just,
no, but it's not getting put on that text thing.
well, that I don't have that page over the weekend.
I don't think we
That's-
have that ability. We as a
So we
department don't
don't.
use that.
We
don't
Yeah,
have the
communications
Communications
department
communications
does.
department.
So maybe,
Monday
Because
through
that-
Friday.
could we maybe, if we talk about it, is it possible to bring Tom in to
David's
talk?
right there.
Yeah, would you, or even David, would you want to talk about that text messaging next meeting?
Yeah, we can, you'll be here, why
Like
not?
Working together?
Sure, we'll get it on for next month,
I'll
we'll
just
talk about it.
explain how it works, and, different departments can be their own admins who put out an alert, and once that's sent out, anyone that subscribes automatically blasted out to everybody via text message or email, whichever of the two options they want. So,
Okay, any other questions for Amanda? Right, let's move on. We are at events and programs, Nikki.
Yep, so we just have the Hollow Week coming up that we partner with Main Street Marshfield. As you can see, we have dates within the week. They also have activities going on for Hollow Week. So a lot of activities happening for the parks and the plaza during that week, which is what we've done in the past. So you can look at the dates and what we have planned. Should be a fun week.
Luminary Hike, October 24th.
Correct.
That'll be a good one at Weber Park.
Yep, and we're bringing up the spooky zoo tours at Wildwood. That's new,
Mhm.
that I'm working with Sarah on. Trick-or-treating downtown happens every year. That's on the 28th. And Parks and Rec will be handing out candy at Hardacre, which is new. And then we have pumpkin painting in the plaza, which we've done the last 3 years.
Okay. Anything else?
Second Street Redevelopment Committee, they're working on forming a committee, or I believe a committee has been formed, to head up the continuation of that project, but there's no updates as of right now.
Okay. Questions for Nikki on events? Thank you. Where are we at? Parks, Forestry, and Zoo. Ben?
Thought you were going to overtop me, John. No, we're just typical fall stuff. Blowing out water lines, be closing restrooms soon. Project Wayside, first layer of asphalt got done last Saturday. If you haven't been over there yet, it's a nice improvement. The Park Zoo Road is completely done. It's been shouldered. We're planting trees this week, planting 100 trees. You'll see the Park and Rec crew out there doing that. It's great. Our bare root trees will be getting the spring out of the gravel beds. The zoo, a couple fun things. We received 2 does here this last month, and they've integrated very well with the herd. And we also got a prairie and falcon, which will go out on display either later this week or next week. That's all I got.
Questions for Ben? Those, the sheep that are, what are those, what kind of sheep are those? I forget, but
no,
they're out a lot more now. That
Yeah.
there's 2 of them together. That's really cool.
Yeah,
to
that was
see.
a nice improvement,
Yeah,
for sure.
but really cool.
Yep.
All right, are we skipping over cemetery?
It's in the report, just said 8th of September, Dan Amy attended the Wisconsin Association of Cemeteries Conference in Green Bay, and they're continuing to do cleanup. They have their fall cleanup of the headstones and area, things that are left behind, and then a lawn mowing and mulching is going on.
No issues with
Just the normal issues, people, it's funny, I'll tell you quick, this small story is, someone came this week and they complained, like, I can't believe you took our stuff down. We know you said October 1st, but why did you take it down? And they're like, but you know.
It's only October 7th.
It's
Right.
October 7th, like, but you even knew the deadline. Well, we couldn't get up here, like, well, how are we supposed to know that you could, but it's
Yeah.
amazing how they even know the deadline, but they still.
Or they could have called
Um,
and said, hey, can you set our stuff aside?
And we have gotten phone calls, we have worked with the people, it's just,
Yeah.
compared to where it was, we're not even near, not a blip on the radar.
Good.
It's a normal everyday complaint.
The communication on that was excellent.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Okay. Let's move on to you, Justin.
Strong guard windows are they're in here, but they're gonna be installed later this month. We're currently starting our city's budget process with the common council on Monday. The electronic vehicle charging stations are still moving forward. I put in your place is the CIP. John mentioned earlier in the month that he doesn't remember seeing the CIP in the list of projects, but I want to put it in front of you, and we can talk about the CIP at a later date, but if you want to review it. And then we do have a work day where we would like the committee members, volunteer members in the community, friends of the trails to come out and help spread gravel. We have some trails in Wildwood that could use some TLC. It's going to be a nice bonding opportunity to go out and do a little manual labor for only an hour between 5:30 and 6:30. Next Wednesday, October 12th, between 5:30 and 6:30. Then 19th, thank you, October 19th. Ben will get the gravel there and some equipment to help move the gravel around, the wheelbarrows, rakes, and shovels. I know some of you already have some prior obligations, but if you can make it, great. And then we'll go out and have replenish our plant first.
I live
Are
2
you
blocks away,
buying?
so I should be able to make it.
Bring your gloves.
Get your caffeine.
Yeah.
We all know what happens when Justin buys.
Yeah.
Water for
Go thirsty.
Job.
And then we have Parks Rec and Forestry Committee, any items for future agendas? We have the one from Natasha, who will talk about pool closing and communication around that. Anything else for next month? Okay, great. Next meeting is 5:30 Wednesday, November 9th. Let us know if you can't make it. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second, we're adjourned.